Morning light breaks over the dust on the road leading out of Egypt. 11 men are walking north toward Canaan, their donkeys heavy with purchased grain. They have barely cleared the city limits, the taste of a lavish Egyptian banquet still on their tongues, when the sound of hooves and chariot wheels tears through the quiet behind them. It is the steward of the Lord of Egypt, riding hard, shouting for them to halt. See the scene. They are immediately accused of theft. The steward demands to search their grain sacks, claiming a royal silver cup is missing. But watch the sequence of the search. The Egyptian does not tear into the bags in a random frenzy. He is chillingly precise. He starts with the oldest brother, Reuben, and moves down the line, sack by sack, until he reaches the youngest, Benjamin, and inside the sack of the youngest, the stolen silver gleams against the wheat. Stop right there. We know the man sitting on the Egyptian throne is Joseph. We know he planted the object himself to keep his little brother from leaving. But the true paradox here is not the trap itself. The paradox is the terrifying identity Joseph constructs around the object he chose to bait it with. A Hebrew prophet, a man who explicitly declared to Pharaoh that interpretation belongs to the God of Israel alone, uses this specific silver cup to convince his brothers he is practicing pagan magic. Sit with that. Look closely at the accusation the steward hurls at the brothers on the dusty road. Genesis 44. 5 inches, the King James Version lays out the trap. Is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth? Ye have done evil in so doing, he divineth. The steward is not accusing them of stealing simple tableware. He is accusing them of stealing the governor's instrument of hydromancy. This is the dark art of predicting the future by reading the ripples of water or wine inside a metal vessel. It is a deeply Egyptian practice, an occult ritual strictly forbidden by the God of their fathers. Read that again. Why would a righteous Hebrew purposely frame himself as an Egyptian sorcerer? Why not use a gold ring, or a signet, or a royal garment to frame Benjamin? To understand the sheer weight of this deception, we have to pull back the lens. There is an ancient historical text preserved in Jewish tradition called the Book of Jasher. Jasher details the elaborate, terrifying psychological pressure Joseph applied to his brothers during the banquet the night before this chase on the road. Joseph was not just playing a cruel game of hide and seek. He was carefully constructing an inescapable illusion. Picture it. The silver cup is a weapon. It is designed to force these 11 men into the exact same scenario they engineered 22 years ago. A favored son, marked for doom, about to be dragged down into slavery in a foreign land. The cup in the steward's hand is the hinge of the entire test. Joseph needs to know if the curse of brotherhood has finally been broken. He needs to know if Judah will walk away from Benjamin the way he walked away from the pit at Dothan. Same desert, same blood. The brothers tear their clothes. The donkeys are loaded back up. The long walk back to the city begins. But to understand the sheer terror waiting for them in the governor's throne room, we cannot just look at the word divination. We have to look at the metal itself. The silver object sitting in Benjamin's sack has pulled the brothers back into a nightmare they thought they buried decades ago. There is a reason Joseph chose this specific type of vessel to break them. What does the original Hebrew call this cup? And why does that single word change everything about the illusion? The doors of the governor's mansion in the Egyptian capital slam shut behind them. 11 men are thrown to the polished stone floor. The burning heat of the Canaanite road is gone, replaced by the heavy, shadowed chill of an imperial throne room. Joseph is waiting, and the silver object is sitting on the dais between them. See the scene. The steward does not present the evidence. The brothers do not try to explain the grain. The silence is terrifying. And then the governor speaks. Watch what the text does. He does not ask them if they stole the silver. He does not demand a confession of petty theft. He attacks them on a completely different axis. Genesis 44, 15 inches, the King James records the exact trap. And Joseph said unto them, What deed is this that ye have done? Wot ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine? Stop right there. A man as I, an Egyptian lord, a master of the hidden arts. He is telling them, You did not just steal from my table. You stole the very eye through which I see the unseen. The silver object in his hand is suddenly not a vessel for wine, it is a portal. In the ancient Near East, a silver chalice filled with liquid was an elite tool for hydromancy. Egyptian sages and priests would fill a metallic basin with pure water, sometimes dropping in fragments of gold or precious oil. They watched the light fracture. They believed the gods spoke through the ripples. To steal a governor's divining cup was not a property crime. It was an act of spiritual treason. Sit with that. The governor is claiming the water whispered their guilt. He tracked them by magic. But step outside the room for a moment and look at the man sitting on the throne. Pull a thread from just a few years earlier in the timeline. Cross-reference this terrifying Egyptian sorcerer with the young Hebrew slave of Genesis 42:8, standing in a dungeon, looking at two terrified prisoners who have had dreams. Joseph asked a singular question. Do not interpretations belong to God? And he repeated this theology directly to Pharaoh's face in Genesis 41:16. It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Reading, not inventing. Joseph built his survival, his freedom, and his empire on the strict, unbending declaration that pagan magic is dead air, and the God of his fathers alone reveals the hidden things. He is a Hebrew prophet. One prophet, two masks. This is the paradox of the silver cup. Joseph is actively voicing a heresy against his own faith to construct a psychological prison for his brothers. He is weaponizing the dark arts of Egypt, projecting the image of a ruthless pagan lord who reads the future in the bottom of a wine glass. I hold this as a careful reading of his method, a strategy drawn directly from the tension in the verses. Joseph is not falling into idolatry. He is building an architectural lie. The brothers are weeping in the dust because they have no defense against magic. How do you argue with a man who claims the unseen realm has already condemned you? You can only surrender to the doom. The trap is set, and the brothers are paralyzed by the illusion of Egyptian sorcery. But the specific Hebrew noun used to describe this silver object is completely missing from the rest of the Genesis narrative. What exactly is Joseph holding in his hand? Look closely at the object sitting on the dais between the weeping brothers and the Egyptian lord. The English text simply calls it a cup. But English is often a flat language, and translation has a way of hammering ancient artifacts down into something common. In the ancient Near East, if a man sat at his table to drink wine, or if a servant handed water to a king, they used a specific vessel. The Hebrew word for that standard drinking cup is kos. You can read it yourself just 4 chapters earlier in the King James. In Genesis 40:11, the imprisoned chief butler tells Joseph his dream, saying, "And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand." The word there is kos, a simple, functional object. Watch what the text does. When the steward tears open Benjamin's sack in Genesis 44:2, the author of Genesis abruptly abandons the common word. The text says, "And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest." But the Hebrew scroll does not say kos. The word buried in the metal is gabia. Stop right there. A gabia is not a cup you drink from casually. It is a massive, ornate chalice, often hammered and shaped to resemble a blooming flower. It is heavy, ceremonial, and deeply significant. To understand the sheer weight of what Joseph is holding, We have to track this specific word through the rest of the biblical text. Where else does this exact Hebrew noun appear? Fast forward a few decades in the timeline. The children of Israel are standing at the base of Mount Sinai. In Exodus 25-31, God commands Moses to build the golden menorah, the massive lampstand that will illuminate the holy place of the tabernacle. The instructions are hyper-specific. The branches must be forged with bowls made like unto almonds. Turn that verse back into its original language. The Hebrew word for those sacred, fire-bearing bowls is gabiah. Read that again. Same root, same shape. Joseph is not holding a tavern mug. He is holding a heavy, architectural vessel that mirrors the holy things of God. I offer this as a text-led connection, one careful way of reading the weight of the Hebrew, not as a final dogmatic claim, but the linguistic echo is impossible to ignore. Joseph, the Hebrew prophet, has taken an object that shares the linguistic DNA of the sanctuary and veiled it in the darkness of Egyptian hydromancy. He is using a holy shape to project a profane illusion. Picture it. The brothers are staring at this blooming silver chalice on the stone floor of the throne room. They believe it is an artifact of the occult. They believe it tracked them down the Canaanite road. But why? Why are they so instantly convinced that this specific gabiah possesses dark, divining power? Because of what they watched the governor do with it the night before. You do not use a standard drinking cup for the kind of psychological warfare Joseph unleashed. To understand why the 11 men have completely surrendered to the illusion, we have to rewind the clock 12 hours. We have to leave the throne room and go back to the banquet table. The silver resting on the dais is not a common cup, but a heavy ceremonial vessel masking a divine trap. To understand its true terror, we must return to the feast the night before the chase, when the Egyptian lord first placed it on the table. What exactly did Joseph do with the silver chalice while his brothers were watching? Go back 12 hours before the dust of the Canaanite road. The sun has set on the Egyptian capital, and the governor's massive banquet hall is lit by heavy oil lamps. The 11 brothers have been brought inside the palace to eat. They are terrified, but the governor is not executing them. He is feeding them. See the scene. The meat is brought out, the wine is poured, and then the seating arrangement begins. Genesis 43, 33 inches. The King James records a detail so strange, the brothers themselves are paralyzed by it. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men marveled one at another. Stop right there. They marveled because the Egyptian lord placed all 11 of them at the table in their exact biological birth order, from Reuben the firstborn down to Benjamin the youngest. Think about the mathematics of that moment. The statistical probability of guessing the exact age sequence of 11 men by random chance is 1 in 39 million. Sit with that. It is a mathematical impossibility. The Egyptian lord knows things about their bloodline that no foreigner could possibly know. But the canonical text leaves a deliberate, haunting gap. It tells us they were seated in order, but it does not tell us how the governor orchestrated it. How did he perform the sorting without giving away his identity? To answer that, we turn to the ancient scribes. There is a revered Aramaic translation of the Torah, read aloud in the synagogues for centuries, alongside the Hebrew, known as Targum Pseudo-Jonathan. And the Targum expands this banquet scene with a terrifying detail. Watch what the text does. The Targum records that Joseph did not just point to the chairs. He used a prop. He picked up a heavy silver chalice from his table, the gabiah, and he struck it. He hit the metal, letting the harsh sound ring out in the stone hall. And then he looked down at the liquid and called out Reuben's name. He struck the silver again and called Simeon. He struck it a third time, and pointed to Levi. Picture it. One by one, the hammer hits the silver. One by one, a brother is forced to sit. Joseph is pretending to divine their ages from the ringing of the metal and the ripples in the wine. He is building the illusion in real time. I hold this as their telling, not as proven fact. I offer it as one ancient tradition's record of how the trap was set. But look at how flawlessly it locks into the canon. When the steward accuses them on the road the next morning, claiming the silver cup is the instrument whereby his Lord divines, the brothers do not question it. They do not argue the theology. They believe it immediately, because they watched the silver perform the magic with their own eyes. Same cup, same lie. The book of Jasher adds one final devastating layer to this banquet. When the ringing of the cup reaches the end of the line, only Benjamin is left standing. Jasher records that Joseph looks at the boy, strikes the silver one last time, and declares that his divination reveals this youngest brother has no mother, and that his full brother was torn by wild beasts. Therefore, the Egyptian lord declares, the boy must sit alone at his private table. The brothers are completely dismantled. The trap of the silver chalice is set. But to fully understand why Joseph is going to these extreme, agonizing lengths, to break the men who share his blood, we have to look past the object and look at the man holding it. The air in the throne room is completely still. 11 men are pressed against the cold stone floor, waiting for the governor's wrath to fall. The heavy silver gabiah rests on the dais, a silent witness to their supposed crime. They have no defense against a man who reads the unseen. And so, the brother who once sold the boy into slavery finally speaks. Genesis 44. 16 inches, the King James records the surrender. And Judah said, what shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found. Stop right there. Judah is not confessing to the theft of the silver. He knows Benjamin did not steal it. He is confessing to a 22-year-old murder. God hath found out the iniquity. The brothers believe the Egyptian gods of the gabiah have somehow triggered the God of Israel to finally punish them for the pit at Dothan. Sit with that. The psychological pressure has cracked them open. But to keep the pressure on, Joseph has to remain entirely alien. He has to lean fully into the terrifying persona of the Egyptian sorcerer lord. He cannot show a fraction of Hebrew mercy. Watch how the text builds this absolute separation. We know from earlier in the narrative, in Genesis 42-23, exactly how Joseph communicates with his brothers, and they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. The Hebrew word used there for interpreter is melitz. It means an ambassador, a mock mediator, someone who stands between two parties to keep them distant. Picture it. Joseph is not speaking directly to his own flesh and blood. Every threat, every accusation, every mention of the divining cup is filtered through an Egyptian mouth. The melitz is a vocal mask, just as the gabiah is a physical mask. And the mask goes deeper than language. Look at the oath. Joseph swears to bind this trap. Back when he first demanded they bring Benjamin to Egypt, he did not swear by the God of Abraham. Genesis 42-15 records his vow. Hereby ye shall be proved, by the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Read that again. By the life of Pharaoh. The son of Jacob is swearing by a pagan god-king. He is burying his identity so deeply in the dirt of the Nile that his brothers cannot see a single trace of the boy they threw into the ground in Canaan. I hold this as a careful reading of his strategy, not as a judgment on his soul. Joseph is not abandoning his faith. He is constructing an airtight prison of circumstances, If he reveals himself now, the brothers will simply be relieved. They will be saved from execution, but their hearts will never be tested. They will just be men who got caught. Joseph does not want men who got caught. He wants to know if the jealousy that tore his family apart is still living in their blood. The Egyptian mask, the foreign oath, the interpreter, the silver chalice, they are all designed to strip away every defense until only the core of their brotherhood remains. Reading, not inventing. The mask is flawless, and the men on the floor are trapped in the grip of a sorcerer they cannot fight. But the Egyptian lord does not demand their lives for the stolen silver. He demands a very specific restitution. What exact punishment does the Gabia carry, and why does it perfectly mirror a 22-year-old crime? The governor looks down at the terrified men weeping on his floor. They have just surrendered their lives. Judah has offered all 11 of them as slaves to the Egyptian crown to cover the theft. It is a moment of total capitulation. But watch what the text does. The Egyptian lord refuses the surrender. Genesis 44, 17 inches, the King James Version records the exact sentence. And he said, "God forbid that I should do so. But the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for you, get you up in peace unto your father." Stop right there. To the Egyptian guards standing in the room, this sounds like incredible clemency. The governor is punishing the guilty party and letting the innocent men walk. But to the 10 men kneeling on the stone, this is a calculated, breathing nightmare. The silver Gabia has not just dictated a legal sentence, it has resurrected a ghost. Picture it. Look past the polished pillars of the throne room. Cross-reference this exact legal ruling with a scene buried 22 years in the past. Genesis 37. The dry, cracked earth of Dothan. A teenage boy screaming from the bottom of a dry cistern. And 10 brothers sitting down to eat a meal while deciding what to do with him. Genesis 37:27 records the voice of Judah ringing over the desert dirt. "Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him. For he is our brother and our flesh." Same crime, same cost. The silver chalice has engineered the exact same scenario. One favored, motherless son from the beloved wife, Rachel, left behind to become a slave in Egypt. 10 older brothers, free to walk away, keeping their own hands clean. The architecture of the test is terrifyingly precise. Joseph is not testing their honesty, he is testing their repentance. Sit with that. I offer this not as a hidden code or an apocryphal secret, but as the raw, architectural brilliance of the canonical narrative. Joseph has placed them squarely inside the footprint of their own original sin. If they walk out of those doors without Benjamin, they prove that 22 years of guilt has changed absolutely nothing. They are the same men who ate bread while their brother wept in the dark. But there is a detail in the governor's ruling that twists the knife deeper. Look at the specific words he uses to dismiss the older brothers. "Get you up in peace unto your father." Read that again. In peace. The Hebrew word is shalom. The governor is commanding them to return to Jacob with wholeness, with tranquility, with nothing broken. But there is no peace in this equation. If they go back to Canaan without the boy, the shock will kill their father. Joseph knows this. The brothers know this. The illusion of the silver cup has backed them into an impossible corner. The Egyptian sorcerer has offered them their lives. Walk away, keep your freedom, let the boy pay the price. The governor has handed them their survival wrapped in the exact sin that damns them. The trap is perfectly sprung, and the silver cup has done its work. What happens when the brother who sold the first favored son is finally asked to walk away from the second? The gods step forward to take the boy. The heavy silver Gabia sits on the dais, its work finally complete. The sentence has been passed. 10 men are free to walk out of the polished bronze doors of the throne room and head back the way they came, returning to Canaan with their lives intact. But one man does not move toward the doors. One man turns his back on his freedom and steps closer to the throne. See the scene. Genesis 44, 18 inches. The King James records the physical shift in the room. Then Judah came near unto him, and said, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not thine anger burn against thy servant, for thou art even as Pharaoh. Stop right there. Of all the brothers, it is Judah who closes the distance. This is the hinge of the entire decades-long mystery. 22 years earlier, at the edge of a dry cistern in Dothan, Judah was the architect of the betrayal. He was the one who calculated the profit of selling his own flesh and blood to the Ishmaelites. He was the one who traded his father's favored son for 20 pieces of silver. Read that again. Traded for silver. And now, a second favored son is being claimed by a silver vessel. The Gabia has forced Judah to look directly into the terrifying mirror of his own history. The Egyptian governor is sitting in silence, waiting to see if the reflection has changed. Judah begins to speak, and he does not stop for 14 unbroken verses. It is the longest single speech recorded in the book of Genesis. He recounts the grief of his father. He details the fragile, protected life of the boy. And then he reveals the hidden oath that brought him back into this room. He references a vow he made to Jacob before they ever crossed the Egyptian border. Pull the cross-reference from just one chapter prior. Genesis 43-9 records Judah's exact words to his father. I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him. The Hebrew word buried in that desperate oath is Arab. It means to pledge, to mortgage, to braid together. It is an act of total exchange. Judah did not just promise to keep an eye on the boy. He braided his own fate into Benjamin's blood. If the boy falls, Judah falls. Sit with that. The Egyptian lord listens from the throne. The interpreter stands silently beside him. And then Judah delivers the final, shattering blow to the governor's carefully constructed test. Genesis 44-33 records the surrender. Now therefore I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad a bondman to my Lord, and let the lad go up with his brethren. Watch what the text does. The curse is finally broken. Judah does not offer to share the sentence, he offers to take it completely. He will wear the chains. He will die in the foreign dirt. He will let the innocent boy walk away. He has reversed Dothan. He has reached into the pit and pulled the brother out. I hold this as the masterstroke of the entire biblical narrative of Joseph. A restoration that required the brutal, terrifying pressure of the silver chalice to finally pull out of the darkness. The trap worked. The heart is exposed. The brother who sold a slave has just volunteered to become one. The sorcerer mask has done its job, and the ghost of the pit has been laid to rest. The heavy silver vessel is about to lose all its pagan power, stripping the Egyptian lord of his final defense. What happens when a weeping Hebrew prophet finally takes off the crown of the empire? Go back now to the dust of the Canaanite road where this film began. The morning light, the 11 brothers standing by their donkeys, the Egyptian steward tearing open the sacks from oldest to youngest, the heavy silver gleaming against the grain. You have read that scene 100 times as a cruel prank played by a powerful man. But tonight, you have a name for the vessel in the steward's hand. It is not a common cause. It is a Gabia. And the illusion it carried was not a betrayal of the prophet's faith, but the very mechanism of his family's salvation. See the scene with new eyes. The silver chalice was never an instrument of hydromancy. It never whispered the future. It was a mirror, hammered into the shape of the sanctuary, designed to reflect the darkest corner of the brothers' past. Joseph did not need to divine the future. He needed to divine their repentance. The Egyptian mask, the strange ringing at the banquet table, the false accusation of magic, it was all necessary. Only the inescapable terror of pagan sorcery could bypass their defenses and force Judah to trade his life for the favored son. Same desert, same blood. But this time, a different ending. Genesis 45. 1 inch, the King James records what happens the exact second Judah offers himself as a slave. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him. And he cried, "Cause every man to go out from me." Stop right there. The test is over. The interpreter is dismissed. The guards are sent away, and the terrifying Egyptian lord, the master of the hidden arts, breaks down and weeps so loudly that the biblical text says the house of Pharaoh heard it. He takes off the mask. He switches back to his native tongue, and he says 3 words that shatter the illusion forever. I am Joseph. I hold this as one reading of the narrative, not the final dogmatic word, but I offer it to you, because it changes how we see the God of this text. God did not require Joseph to compromise his prophetic calling to save his family. He allowed Joseph to use the language of the empire to expose the truth of the heart. Sit with that. The brothers are restored. The famine will be survived. The family will move to Goshen. But the text never tells us what happened to the silver cup. It is entirely absent from the rest of the story. The Gabiah has done its work, leaving a fraction of its history deliberately open, sitting somewhere on the cold stone floor of the throne room while a family weeps together for the first time in 2 decades. The silence is still holding the rest. If you saw the text shift tonight, comment the word "watch" down below. Subscribe to the channel because we are reading the canon as it was meant to be read, keeping the ancient context alive. And send this to one person who loves the book of Genesis but has never heard the ringing of the silver chalice. The pit is finally empty, and the prophet is going home.